Elie Monette is considered the father of the modern steel drum. Creating a Symphony of Steel by Cheryl M. Reifsnyder. Elie Monette grew up in a poor part of Trinidad, a small Caribbean island. When he decided to start making music, garbage cans and metal buckets were all that were available. When I started fooling around with the trash cans, I was 11 years old, Elie recalls. No one knew that those trash cans would eventually lead him to create a new instrument, the steel drum. A steel drum looks like a giant silver bowl with dents covering the bottom. Those dents are what make steel drums special, because different sized dents make different musical notes when struck with a drumstick. This means that musicians can use a steel drum to create songs as well as rhythms. From noise to music. As a boy, Elie loved listening to classical music. Because we were ruled by the British, the programming on the radio stations was classical music all the time, he says. I loved to listen to waltzes, Chopin, and Mendelssohn. He began to experiment with paint cans and garbage cans, trying to reproduce the sounds of an orchestra with everyday metal objects. But in 1939, musicians of all ages in Trinidad were interrupted from working on their music, just as Elie was creating his first steel drums from oil barrels. World War II began. Enemy ships streamed in and out of Caribbean harbors. The governor declared a state of emergency. This meant there would be no parties or celebrations of any kind, which meant no music could be played in the streets. When the bands did practice, neighbors complained about the noise and chased the boys away. Sometimes people smashed the kids' drums. Elie began hiding the empty oil barrels in the jungle where he could work on them in secret. World War II ended, the ban was lifted, and Elie and some other boys formed a band. By 1951, steel bands had become so popular in Trinidad that the government formed the Trinidad All-Steel Percussion Orchestra. Elie was one of the musicians who went to represent his country at a festival in England. It was the beginning of a great career. A beautiful sound. Elie Monette developed 7 of the 10 different types of steel drums used today. He found a better way to make musical notes on a steel drum by sinking or pounding in the drum's surface with a sledgehammer. He invented better drumsticks by covering wooden sticks with pieces of rubber bicycle tubes. He says, as I grew older, I wanted to hear my steel instruments sound like some of the conventional instruments I was hearing, particularly the cello. I found that instrument especially haunting in tone. Collections of his instruments have been displayed at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. At the University of West Virginia, he trained future steel drum makers and players. He even started his own company, Monette Musical Instruments. From a boy's dream came a beautiful new sound, a symphony of steel drums. Monette created his first steel drums from old oil barrels like these. The steel drum. The steel drum is a tuned idiophone. That means the vibrations of the body of the instrument make the sound. Other idiophones are cymbals and gongs. Today, steel bands are a big hit at festivals and in parades all over the world.